When you leave here, the first thing I want you to do is get your vitamin D levels checked. That piece of information alone can save and extend your life. I'm telling you this because I want to demonstrate a leadership style. It is probably true that your own doctor will get back your vitamin D level, and if it's low normal, will tell you it's fine if it's 24, 34, whatever. The latest research by the Garland brothers and by Michael Hollick in Boston show that the optimal level is between 50 and 100. I'm willing to bet that 80% of you have levels far lower than that. Those with the highest vitamin D levels have the least number of heart attacks, half the risk of breast cancer, half the risk of bowel cancer. They almost never get multiple sclerosis. There is a vitamin D receptor on every cell in your body. It is both a vitamin and a hormone. And we have a worldwide epidemic right now of vitamin D deficiency because people have been so worried about skin cancer. The number of women who will be saved from breast cancer by this information pales. It's so much greater than the number of people who will die from skin cancer, which is almost nobody. You just go and get it taken off, right? It's no big deal. And I am telling you this because I want to demonstrate a couple things about leadership and health. And it's the only reason that I'm here, is that I grew up in a family where my dad was a holistic dentist. We didn't have the word holistic then, but he was very interested in nutrition and health, and he had Weston Price's book on his bedside reading table. Weston Price was a dentist who went around to all the different cultures in the world, and he found that their jaw structure and their dentition was perfect until a westernized, refined food diet was brought in, and then within one generation, the teeth got crooked and the jaw broke down and so on, and they began to get all the diseases of civilization. So my dad knew this, and he said health begins in your mouth, and it's also the center of the personality, which is why no one wants you mucking around in there as a dentist. Dentists, I think, have a suicide rate second only to psychiatrists. And he used to say, that's because it is just a little less demoralizing to look into people's mouths than into their minds. You know, the mind is sometimes a bad neighborhood, and you shouldn't go there alone. I don't know if you have that kind of mind. I can get into that. That's why you want to have a good girlfriend to call. Mine is Diane, who's been working with me for 30 years. She's here with me today. She was my first nurse, and I call her when I get into that bad neighborhood where it's hard to get out. But anyway, I had this background where we raised our own beef cattle and had an organic garden, and I was brought up on Adele Davis. Did anyone out there brought up on Adele Davis? Oh, I'd love that. There's a couple of you. And we were called health nuts, you know. And my aunt, who was a pediatrician, a sadistic kind of a soul, I realize in retrospect, you know, that she considered it her job to terrorize young mothers and children. We know women like that. I just want to, let me just say this, it's part of my service to humanity, okay? About 1 in 5 people has a personality disorder, and they run the entire family. And okay, so the personality disorder would be borderline, narcissistic, schizoid. It's the narcissists you want to watch out for, because it's always about them. No matter what you do, you can't give enough. And I'm going to tell you, this is other than the vitamin D level, okay, which should be between 50 and 100, all right? So just should be 50 to 100. Then to get your vitamin D level up to where you want it, the Michael Hollick protocol is 10,000 international unit capsules, which you need a prescription for. You take 5 of those once a week, every Sunday for 8 weeks, and then you get your level rechecked. Now do this with your healthcare practitioner. And my experience is that nurse practitioners are usually much more savvy than doctors. Any nurse practitioners out here? Where are they? Oh, just one? All right, maybe your doctors will be okay out here. I hope so. But in general, here's the thing about all medical research. What's happening in a laboratory, say in California, that's really cutting edge, that could save your life, may not trickle down to standard practice of medicine for 20 years. Now, I don't feel terribly bad about that, because from the time that they discovered that having limes on the ship would prevent scurvy, it took 250 years to get the limes on the ship. So hundreds of thousands of sailors died that didn't need to die. I bring you the vitamin D story because I know it's going to be a long time. Okay, the FDA, in their infinite wisdom, just increased the recommended daily allowance of vitamin D to 400 international units a day. They increased it to 400. If you took that amount, you could spend 1,500 lifetimes and never get up to the optimal level. So leadership requires putting yourself on the line. I'm putting myself on the line here. If this were a doctors group, actually I don't usually speak to doctors groups. First of all, because Bernie Siegel long ago taught me, don't go where you have to fight. And don't go where they're just going to be angry. You know? So I come to places like this, and I love that Susie spoke first. I met Susie Orman in the green room of the Today Show, shortly after or during the process of going through my midlife wake-up call, which, in addition to menopause, was a divorce. And I was furious because I was suddenly going to have to pay for my 2 kids to go to college and the mortgage and all of that stuff, and it wasn't fair. It just wasn't fair, I didn't think. I mean, you know. And she said to me, there's only 2 things that keep money from coming to you: fear and anger. And I had a ton of both. But I realized through talking to her that my former husband had done me a huge, huge favor, because I had to learn about money and I had to learn about power. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the area of the body that is your power center. The health of the pelvis in men and women is wired in by your relationship to money, sex, and power. And what do I mean by power? Power is what it takes to go after what you want in the world, balanced by whether or not you'll be loved. So for women, the big conflict here is, how do I go after what I want, but still have the love that I crave? And the way that you balance those 2 in your life determines the health of your pelvic organs. So this is the ovaries, the uterus, the vagina, the cervix. In guys, it's the low back, it's the prostate gland, it's the penis, it's all of that stuff. Now, what do we have in women's health? We have 1 in 3 women having a hysterectomy, 60% having PMS, and we now have a nationwide cesarean birth rate that is 50%. Now, when we are using major surgery to perform, to bypass the most powerful experience in a woman's life, we're in trouble. So in this new women's hospital, I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to monitor you guys. I'm monitoring you, and if your C-section rate goes above 10%, you're going to hear from me. I must be inspired by Susie. I'm not like this usually. I have my moon in Pisces. It's, you know, Pisces is, I give so that you may live. That's what Pisces, you know. I'll bet she's moon in Aries. Defender of the cosmic order. But anyway, birthing, your cells as women know how to birth. I don't care if you never have a kid. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter. but they know how to birth, and they know how to conceive and gestate and labor and birth. Now, all of you who are not going through menopause have another thing that you have that's imbued with wisdom, and that is your menstrual cycle, your connection with the moon, your connection with the tides, your connection with the ocean. What have we done with the menstrual cycle? We've convinced you through a clever campaign that starts in the women's magazines about 4 years before they come out with the drug, that your period is dangerous, it's an inconvenience, so you should be on a pill that gives you 4 periods a year. I was once told by a patient of mine, told me that her doctor said to her she needed to be on the pill because her periods were dangerous because of chronic incessant ovulation. It's funny how nobody ever seems to think chronic incessant ejaculation is a problem.